Slavery is back.
Welcome to a place where private business profit from a captive labour force, yet pennies are spent on medical services to a population in which the Indigenous, the poor and the mentally ill are overrepresented. Where isolation, humiliation and degradation are facts of life. Welcome to prison.
It depends who's telling the story, I suppose. The prisoners would have one view, the people who work in the prison system would have another, and I think it's up to people to decide where the truth is.
Give government propaganda and the media spin doctors the flick. And check out Doin' Time for news, views and tunes on prison issues from Guantanamo Bay to Christmas Island to prisons and detention centres everywhere. Every Monday at 4 p.m. on your community radio 3CR.
We are still fired up and we're still talking about revolution.
Hello and welcome to the Doin' Time show. This is 3CR Community Radio, 855 AM on the dial, streaming live on www.3cr.org.au. This is Marisa and I'll be taking you through until 5 o'clock this evening. First up on the show, we're going to be speaking with Max Costello, who is from the Refugee Action Collective, and we're going to be speaking with him about a very important topic, and it's entitled Too Much Waste, Too Much Cruelty. Refugee Advocates call for Dutton to be sacked. That's actually the title of a recent media release that the Refugee Action Collective recently wrote. And Dutton wastes $1.2 billion on processing 26 asylum claims, locks up very ill Medivac transferees, providing little health care, and evicts community detainees while ending their income support. So we're going to be speaking with Max Costello about all that, and we'll speak to him also about via the growing number of federal financial scandals. The Morrison government has been, in effect, steadily self-sabotaging its claim to be Australia's best economic manager. So we'll be speaking about that, and we've spoken to the Refugee Action Collective and also refugees and asylum seekers themselves on this show over the years about the effect that all of this has had on them. Then after that, we'll be speaking with Zelda from Make West Papua Safe, and we'll be speaking to her about an event coming up in Melbourne, and we'll speak to her about that. She'll talk to us about why the AFP and Home Affairs Minister Dutton, why won't they meet the people impacted by Australia's security investments, and are our tax dollars paying for war crimes? Okay, so we'll be speaking with Max very soon.
The Djab Wurrung Heritage Protection Embassy is asking for support. On Monday 26th of October, a sacred directions tree was cut down on Djab Wurrung women's country. Traditional owners have called this an act of cultural genocide, and more sacred trees remain under threat as works continue. Here's what you can do. 1. Come to the embassy and protect the trees on the ground. Visit the Djab Wurrung Heritage Protection Embassy Facebook page for more information about how to get there and what to bring. 2. Ring Daniel Andrews on 9651 5000 and let him know what you think. 3. Educate yourself about the situation and spread the word to others. 4. Donate to the embassy on their GoFundMe page. 3CR supports the Djab Wurrung Heritage Protection Embassy. No trees, no treaty.
And you're back with the Doin' Time show, and we're speaking now with Max Costello from the Refugee Action Collective Victoria. Welcome, Max, to the program.
Thanks very much, Marisa.
It's lovely to have you. Now, Max, I'm wondering if you could just start off and talk about what's been going on. I mean, why has there been too much waste and too much cruelty?
I think the two-word answer is Peter Dutton. But just to background you on why the Refugee Action Collective of Victoria, RACVIC for short, why we put out this media release was that we've been reading and hearing about financial scandals at the federal level, and $20,000 going on watches for Australia Post execs, $30 million being paid for a hunk of land for a future airport the land's only worth $3 million. And we've been doing a bit of homework on the Home Affairs portfolio and their spending. And as we say in our media release, the waste of money by Dutton's Department of Home Affairs puts all those recent scandals, it just makes them look like small change. So I can explain more if you like, but that's the background to why we highlighted this squandering in our $1.2 billion on so-called offshore processing, when there are, at the last report, there are only a handful of asylum claims still being processed offshore.
Absolutely, and really, offshore is a violation of human rights, and it costs money anyway. Why not do onshore? Well,
that's right. You see, there's a whole raft of there's crimes against humanity involving breaches of human rights obligations. There's when I was last on your show a year or two back, there's breaches of work health and safety in the immigration detention facilities. There's so many angles, so many atrocious things going on. Our focus on our media release was basically on the squandering of money and the cruelty of kicking people out of their community detention residences and are expecting them to find another place and pay for another place to live in within a few weeks. So there's a whole raft of shocking things being done by Home Affairs. But what we decided to focus on in the recent media release, because the financial scandals were getting such prominence, we thought it's time the public became aware of Dutton and Home Affairs being the biggest waster of all in the federal government sphere. And also, as people might recall, the Home Affairs has got form. They've been the subject, that department has been the subject of scathing criticisms by the Auditor General in years past. And for example, in May 2020, May this year, there was a lack of financial probity, according to the Auditor General, in the way Home Affairs awarded various contracts to entities supposedly providing services on Manus Island, or at least in Papua New Guinea. That $745 million not properly. That process was not properly dealt with, and that's there are previous reports saying much the same thing.
Absolutely, and it's interesting that, and this is something that I think that you've said in the media release, and I just wanted to explore that a bit further, if that's okay. That you say that Home Affairs, within its 2020 to 2021 federal budget allocation, is spending $1.19 billion on offshore processing, even though the regional processing centre on PNG's Manus Island was closed on the 31st of October 2017, and Nauru's RPC has been empty since the 31st of March 2019.
Yes, so people seem to, and sometimes the media get this wrong, they talk about Australia's offshore processing centres. Well, as you've just said, the Manus one was closed down on the 31st of October 2017. That's over 3 years ago. And furthermore, not long after its closure, it was demolished. Now, I look periodically and people interested in detention and treatment of asylum seekers and refugees, I recommend that they look up every month the Home Affairs and ABF publication, which is Immigration and Community Detention Statistics Summary, or something pretty close to that. And it tells you, that's how I know that the Nauru Centre, it's still standing, but it's been empty. The last time it held anyone was the 31st of March last year. The handful of people still being processed, people who've been so-called settled in the community on Nauru, and it's not in our media release. We've tried to compact it down to one page, but the fact that the centre's been empty and that there are only a handful of people being processed is how can you justify virtually 1.2 billion? The point I want to make is that those people still being processed, to my knowledge, don't quote me on this, but to my knowledge, they put in claims back in 2014 or 2015, perhaps some even earlier. Why is it that their claims are still being processed? I mean, Border Force can process a Tamil asylum claim on a boat in 1 or 2 days flat. So why are these people being, given a snail's... the money is being spent on the processing staff of Nauru, provided by Nauru, and it appears that they're just spinning it out. In our media release, we estimate that that 1.19 million, if you calculate it across the 26 people, it costs Australian taxpayers about 46 million per claim being processed.
And this is all about human suffering, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah? And
yes,
and really, let's be honest here, it's about human suffering, it's about the violation of human rights, but would you agree that it also goes a step further in that money could easily be spent on providing community services, not just for asylum seekers and refugees, but for everybody, for better health care, for more housing, for more innovative programs to decarcerate prisons, things like that?
Exactly, Marisa. I mean, and as our media release goes on to say, on the one hand, here's Dutton's department squandering over $1 billion on a handful of outstanding claims in one area of his portfolio, and on the other hand, Dutton is the one who's writing letters to people in community detention, which is a great deal cheaper. Money could be saved on that. I mean, why are people being housed in hotels in old-style detention centres when they could be out in the community at much less expense? But Dutton is kicking people out. They're getting letters. There's 500 so far, maybe more, but that was the most recent figure we had. They're giving the recipient 3 weeks to find and pay for their own accommodation. Now, where are they getting the money from? And
3 weeks to what? To find their accommodation?
Their own accommodation. They've had, in community detention, the government, Home Affairs, has been providing housing or flats or whatever.
Because of the coronavirus?
No, this is people who've been... There are people been in the community detention for years.
Yeah.
Right? And all of a sudden, they're not all of them have had work rights, but and they've been given a pittance to live on, less than the old less than JobKeeper, the old Centrelink payment, even less than that. But how are they going to? With what money are they going to pay for the bond even for their own accommodation. They do get access to Medicare, and they do get access to work rights, but it's just an act of barbarism. And as we say, Dutton, it's obvious he doesn't care if they face homelessness and starvation, and it's just a further example of the federal government, the Morrison government, disowning and walking away from its own clear obligations to people and effectively putting the charity, the refugee and asylum seeker support groups, charities and so on, just putting the pressure on them. Oh, well, we'll walk away from our responsibilities. We won't provide these people with money. You look after them. It's just a complete abdication of responsibility.
Indeed it is, and our show has actually interviewed Moz, and we've interviewed, who's in the hotel at the moment, the Mantra. We've interviewed many asylum seekers and refugees. Before the pandemic, we actually were having, at one stage for about 3 months, we were having face-to-face interviews with a lot of asylum seekers that were in the community and actually had no medical care and no food.
Yes, well, as you might have covered in your previous programs, one of the half the case for this is before the COVID outbreak that's now come to an end in Victoria. In the early days, there were almost no COVID cases, and these people had brought here for medical care, largely with shocking high, over 90% incidence of either physical and or psychological, psychiatric health conditions, but and most of it caused by long, 6 years of confinement offshore with very little medical care. And what do? They keep them in detention and don't give them the medical care. And in fact, I think that Alison Batterson's organisation, she's a lawyer, as people know, who stands up. Her organisation looks after refugees and takes cases on their behalf. She recently released the signatures of quite a few people at the Mantra Hotel in Preston who've received little or no medical care, despite the very serious health problems they've been brought here to get treatment for. Could I just add, Marisa?
Sure.
Previously, before the Medivac amendment came through to virtually compel Dutton on the say-so, the considered medical opinion of 2 treating doctors, the amendment gave Dutton, after the cases were brought to his desk, 5 days to make a decision to say yes, they can come here or not. And if he didn't make a decision in those 5 days, the Act said that was a deemed acceptance or approval. So they were brought here. Now, it's interesting, I don't know whether people have covered this, Marisa, but the wording in the amending legislation was that they were to be brought here, quote, for the purpose of medical or psychiatric assessment or treatment. Well, what Dutton and Morrison and Co. did, I'm projecting their motives here, it seems to a lot of people that they were so incensed that they were defeated in Parliament, the Medivac amendment got through, they were so furious, they said, in effect, OK, we'll bring them here for the purpose of assessment or treatment, but they won't get it.
Correct.
And they, as you might know, the people being medevaced here were persuaded, I'd say forced, to sign a document saying that they would agree, while they're in Australia, they would agree to be in detention, and they would also agree that when their treatment was finished, they would return to Papua New Guinea or Nauru. They shouldn't have had to sign anything like that, and of course it's made under duress. It wouldn't stand up. But that's the it's deliberate deprivation of medical care.
And then they repealed it after the Medivac legislation was then repealed, and then we had the pandemic after that. And look what a disaster it is now.
Oh yes. Can I just mention too? I mentioned the hotels. Well, the Mantra Hotel is one in Sydney, in Brisbane. There's another one in Darwin. Now, you might not know this, Marisa, but RACVIC, Refugee Action Collective Victoria, we've done some homework and found that the Accor Hotel Group, I don't know the precise name of the company, it's a French multinational company, the Accor company has pledged itself, as some of the big international companies have, pledged themselves to abide by environmental and human rights principles. So what we've done, one of our members has done, is prepared a letter to be sent to the Accor company and say, well, you've made these high-flown commitments, but let's look at the human rights ones. Two of your hotels, the Preston one and the Darwin one, they are breaching, they are involved, they are complicit in the shocking breach of human rights, bringing people here for medical care and locking them up and not giving it to them. And we've got some very high-profile signatures, and we're hoping to embarrass the company into cutting its ties with Home Affairs and Border Force and ending that detention.
Absolutely. Well, I hope that can happen.
Yes, well, we're what that you might know. There's a ring around of Refugee Advocates every month, and about 3 or 4 months ago, we had a sort of tactics and future strategy chat, and it was realised that although we put enormous pressure to release the hotel detainees where they could safely self-isolate and so on, we didn't budge the government. So let's look at any other avenues of pressure, and that Accor letter is one. Also, RACVIC has just recently written to 13 UN human rights bodies and the International Criminal Court to push once again for prosecution for crimes against humanity. And because there were a total of 5 submissions back 2014 to 2017. You might know, Marisa, that only the submission by independent MP Andrew Wilkie got a response from the prosecutor of the ICC, and it was a pretty unsatisfactory response. So we've written a submission critiquing that inadequate response. At the end of it, at least the office of the prosecutor said, well, look, if there is new facts and information, the matter might be reconsidered. So we said, well, it damn well should be, because the breaches, the crimes against, the alleged crimes against humanity, they used to be committed offshore. Now that there's virtually there's no offshore detention, it's now onshore. But the same alleged crimes are continuing. So we've been
that's
busy
exactly
at
right.
busy at RACVIC.
That's right. Look, you've been really, really knowledgeable, actually. It's really great to be able to talk about figures and also just to discuss the lack of accountability, isn't it, to the Australian people. And and also, wasn't there also an equity economics estimate quoted in the Asylum Seeker Resource Centre's at what cost report? Yes,
and we've referred to it briefly in our letter, and they suggest that equity economics estimates that the total cost of offshore and onshore detention between 2016 and 2020 is $9 billion. And it goes into detail if the people were held onshore or then in the community, or you're given bridging visas as you cascade down those other options. The cost, that $9 billion should never have been spent. That's so we quote that. We've done our homework on the stats. I better tell you, if we've got time, just one more
couple minutes, yep.
About the 1.19 billion. We simplify it and say that's on offshore processing. But I looked into the actual Home Affairs budget papers. They call it offshore management of irregular maritime arrivals. And they do spell out a little bit of detail. They say that 1.19 billion will do, that money will be spent on four things, and I'll mention them briefly, but then I'll come back and say, well, two of them are really, there's nothing to spend on. The four are, number one, supporting partner countries to determine the refugee status of transferees. Well, that's the one we've covered. There's only a handful of people who are still being processed, so that's almost come to an end. Next is supporting partner countries to manage regional processing facilities. Well, one's been demolished and the other's been empty for 18 months. But they do add, including health, welfare and settlement services. Now, this is these dodgy contracts where companies like, it was originally, the name's changed, but there are four companies that got that 743 million I referred to, but do they provide services to protect the people? They're now in, the ex-detainees are now in Port Moresby, a very dangerous place, and they're
extremely.
The third thing is capacity and capability development for partner countries through training and so on. Well, they've been doing it for years. What do they need training for? And the last one is supporting partner countries to provide durable migration options through resettlement, voluntary return, and removal of those found not to be refugees. That's deportation. Now, the migration options, well, they've been put out in the community in PNG and Nauru, so that's been done. I mean, what's to spend? And then, since the government's not taking up the New Zealand offer, which it seems to us that the 1.19 billion is nowhere near that is really needed to deal with those four items, in particular the regional processing of people that's virtually finished.
Look, it really is most appalling. And Max, I think I'm going to have you back for part two, I think.
No, well.
I think we're going to have you back in a couple of weeks. I'm going to be speaking with someone from a campaign to make West Papua safe pretty soon. But this is thank you so much for coming onto the program. And I suppose the last thing I wanted to say quickly is that, with the Refugees Convention, that Australia signed and ratified decades ago, that's not being adhered to, is it?
Oh, absolutely not. And there was a court decision about 3 months ago now where a refugee was actually freed because the department had taken so long. The department said, we're organising to deport him. And they'd been supposedly organising to deport him for several years, and the court said, well, you've had time. That's the only purpose you're holding him. You're not working on that purpose. Therefore, the detention's not legally valid. Release him.
And happened?
Yes, it did. And the department, this is the strange thing, the department came and said, you can't order us to deport him because that would be refoulement in breach of the Refugees Convention. And I'm not quoting the judge here, but the judgment says, Well, you wrote into the Migration Act that people can be deported even if it involves refoulement. So don't try that line on the court. So anyway, I'd better wind up and let you move to your West Papua guest. But
thank you so much, Max.
Look, it's so much to say.
Absolutely. And may I have you back in a couple of weeks? Would that suit you, Max?
By all means, Marisa.
Thank you so much, Max, for coming onto the program. Take care.
And thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're listening to 3CR Community Radio 855 AM on digital and online. 3CR Radical Radio.
Tune into the 2020 Beyond the Bars CD launch. On air, Thursday the 12th of November. Despite the lifting of some COVID restrictions, we'll be launching this year's CD on air and online. This broadcast event will feature highlights from the July broadcast and officially launch the 2020 CD. Order your free copy of the CD now from 3cr.org.au/Beyond the Bars 2020.
Been locked up for the last 5 years, and I always run into family in here. There's that much of my family in here. It's not funny. Just disappointing, not only in here, and in Dame Phyllis too, you know what I mean? So, and there's a lot of women, Aboriginal women, locked up to it at the moment. It's not decreasing in the last few years, it's just more or less increasing. Just doesn't make sense sometimes, you know?
Tune in on Thursday the 12th of November at 2 p.m. for the launch.
And you're back with the Doing Time show. It's about a minute after 4:30, and we're going to be speaking with Zelda from Make West Papua Safe, and hopefully we will be speaking with her about an event that's coming up on November the 16th at 5 p.m. And I was having a bit of a read of it today. I know that 3CR already has a show, but I felt that we wanted to honour the West Papua and speak with Zelda about this event entitled AFP Stop Training Killers. Hello, Zelda. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Marisa. Thanks for having me.
It's lovely to have you, Zelda. Now, I'm wondering, Zelda, if you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit about the background to this event and what's happening, please.
Absolutely. Just to start with, I'll say that I'm coming to you from Dutton country,
yes,
which is in the foothills of the Otways, and I'm really, really grateful to the ancestors who cared for this land so beautifully. And I guess I'm aware that any campaign about police violence and police brutality is also a campaign against racism and colonialism, and so this issue is really resonates with us in Australia, where we've got ongoing police brutality and police racism happening against Indigenous people here. And also I'm mentioning that I'm on Dutton country because I might drop out because our signal's not fantastic down here.
Thank you for the warning. Okay.
Yeah.
And you yourself, where are you from, Zelda?
I grew up in Melbourne. I grew up in the north of Melbourne.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for that respect.
Monday.
Yep.
Yeah. So the event on Monday is at the AFP headquarters in Melbourne. It's at 383 La Trobe Street. And the background to that is that the Australian Federal Police has been involved in training specialist police in Indonesia for nearly 20 years. So after the Bali bombings in 2001, Australia really was key in setting up this new kind of training centre, international training centre for police in Jakarta, called the Jakarta Centre for Law Enforcement Cooperation, or JCLEC. And Australia was part of basically setting up a new Indonesian police force aimed at combating terrorism, and they're called D88. So Australia has continued to support that unit, D88, and also Indonesia's riot police, BRIMOB, through funding for that training centre and through ongoing training and also provision of some supplies. Like they've given them a few patrol boats, they give them office equipment, and it's mostly supplies that can be used in the centre rather than actual weapons. But, every bit helps. But the D88 have not only worked against terrorists, they've also been used to target activists, especially in West Papua. And BREMOB, the riot police, have been notorious for decades as being very heavy-handed and militaristic in their approach to civilians in protests or activists. So we've been campaigning on the AFP for a few years now, asking them to look at not training killers, not training helping Indonesian police effectively become better human rights abusers. And in September, we gave them a formal invitation to meet with some West Papuan human rights defenders. So we've been in contact with community here in Australia and also in West Papua. So those people or those organisations are on board with this campaign and are ready to meet with the Australian Federal Police to discuss the impacts of the training that the AFP are conducting. And a week or so ago, we got a letter back from AFP saying, no, we're not going to meet with them.
And why is that?
Well, that's what we're rallying now to ask. So I can guess.
Simply not sensible. I mean, why wouldn't you want to... Obviously, there's denial, isn't there? That there is a violation of human rights.
I think they have better intelligence than we do about what's going on the ground in West Papua. So I think they're probably very well aware of how many human rights violations BREMOB and D88 and regular police have been involved in.
That's precisely what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
It's disgusting, really.
So, but for the Australian Federal Police to meet with West Papuan human rights activists, I don't imagine Jakarta would like that very much. So that's my guess as to why they've refused, but we need to hear from them. I don't want to preempt their decision. So they did send us quite a long rejection letter. And interesting for your listeners as well, that Peter Dutton's ministry, the Home Affairs Ministry, are also deeply involved with this training institution. So Peter Dutton and the Home Affairs Ministry have set up the Marine Security Task Force in Indonesia, which is a new branch of the police. And that's, of course, all about trying to stop refugees. So Dutton, we also invited Dutton. So we invited the AFP Commissioner Kershaw, and we invited the Minister for Home Affairs, Peter Dutton, to meet with us and meet with human rights activists from West Papua. So Dutton and Kershaw have said no, and they've referred to a document called the AFP National Guidelines. Hang on, I'll get it right. AFP National Guidelines on Offshore Situations Potentially Involving Torture or Cruel and Inhumane Treatment.
Yes.
So we are wondering what guidelines could the AFP possibly have about offshore situations potentially involving torture. So we've asked to see those guidelines, and we've asked for an explanation of their refusal, and we've reiterated the invitation. So that's what we'll be doing on Monday at the AFP office. We're essentially there to support West Papuan human rights activists who are saying, come and talk to us.
Essentially, then, tax dollars are paying for war crimes.
That's what it seems like, Marisa. Yeah, that's exactly what it seems like. Yeah.
Well, let's repeat, in case listeners have just tuned in, this is 3CR Community Radio, and this is the Doing Time show. So in case listeners have just tuned in, Zelda, would you mind just repeating the actual details of the event, please?
Sure. We're inviting everyone interested in demilitarising the police and supporting West Papuan people to be free from violence to join us at the AFP office in Latrobe Street. So it's 383 Latrobe Street, Melbourne. And we're going to meet there at 5 p.m. next Monday. If people are coming alone and they would prefer to come with a group, people are welcome to meet us at 4:45 at Flagstaff Station so that we can walk down to AFP together. So it's going to be a very peaceful, low-key kind of action. I'll just have some songs. We'll hear from some West Papuans. I'll probably give a little bit of background to the AFP's involvement in training training Indonesian police and the kinds of crimes that are being committed by those police in West Papua. And we'll have plenty of music. So there'll be some songs, and there's a song and dance routine we can do together. So it's 5 till 6 at the AFP office at 383 Latrobe Street on Monday.
Zelda, thank you so much for coming onto the program, and you've actually made a very important connection because prior to you, I was actually interviewing Max Costello from the Refugee Action Collective, and we were also talking about taxpayers' dollars going on offshore processing. So it's very much interconnected, isn't it, all these human rights atrocities?
Well, it is, and you'd think that if Dutton really didn't want refugees to come here, he would be trying to stop human rights violations overseas,
Absolutely.
Which is what makes people want to flee their country. So we'll be hearing from some West Papuan refugees at the action on Monday, and really warmly welcome anyone who is able to come by. We'll keep it all COVID safe. And yeah, who knows, maybe we'll get a meeting out of the Australian Federal Police.
I hope we do. I'd be very interested to go, actually.
Well, we'd love to see you there, Marisa. And these campaigns can take years, so if this action does not result in a meeting, there will be further actions, and we'd love your support. And thank you very much for airing us on 3CR today.
Thanks a lot, Zelda.
3CR.
That's
okay,
good. You
bye,
take
Marisa.
care of yourself. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to 3CR Community Radio 855 AM. Visit the 3CR website at 3cr.org.au/podcast to hear the most recent recording from each show, or 3cr.org.au/streaming to listen live.
The current world in which the higher education sector operates is characterized by profit and power. And as universities are further incorporated into global neoliberalism, these ideas of the public good face the most serious threat that they have ever faced. COVID pandemic, besides highlighting all of the other fissures in society, has also really highlighted the terrible inequalities that have long existed within the sector. The precarity, the overwork, declining mental health caused by intensifying privatization and the privileging of profits at all costs, and students who should be our co-learners in this process face mounting debt. If this pandemic has done nothing else, it has shown us that this system in its current iteration is unsustainable. We have to organize and fight against it. There is no other way. There is no alternative, to quote somebody who shall remain nameless.
You're listening to Radical Radio 3CR.
Show 3CR Community Radio, 855 AM on the dial, streaming live on www.3cr.org.au. And we're kind of nearing the end of our show. It's approximately 8:44. 4:44. I'm getting a bit ahead of myself there. It's not even dark yet. I just wanted to thank Max Costello and also Zelda for coming onto the show, our guests from Victoria, and we spoke about a really important topic today in regards to refugees and asylum seekers and also freeing West Papua and keeping it safe. Coming back home to Victoria now, I wanted to actually read out a very brief statement, and this was a really good statement actually that will explain about the trees and what's happening with the sacred trees. And this statement was actually written by Radical Women and the Freedom Socialist Party. And it's entitled "No Trees, No Treaty for the Djibab Wurrung Sovereignty, Not Genocidal Destruction." Statement from Radical Women and Freedom Socialist Party, October 2020. On Monday the 26th of October, when the Victorian government sent workers and police into Djibab Wurrung country to bulldoze a sacred birthing tree and repress protest, another racist, sexist atrocity was committed. The destroyed 350-year-old tree was culturally significant to the Djibab Wurrung people. Women giving birth took the placenta to a tree to mix with the tree seeds, and the tree became the child's direction tree. The hollow trunks of these trees hosted the delivery of around 10,000 babies. To the Victorian government, these trees, about 3,000 of them, some thought to be as old as 800 years, stood in the way of a freeway construction that would save 2 minutes on a trip between Melbourne and Adelaide. In true colonial tradition, the Andrews government manoeuvred a false claim of Djibab Wurrung consent while dismissing an alternative route proposed by Djibab Wurrung spokespeople. After years of battle, the first sacred tree came down. Lydia Thorpe, Djibab Wurrung mother and grandmother, exposes the government's hypocrisy. You cannot desecrate, sell off, destroy, open up, frack and log country and then want to sit with this nation's first people and talk about treaty. This despicable act is similar to an almost identical battle between sacred culture and capitalist investment. In 1994, Nurrinjeri women fought to protect secret women's business from the development of a bridge at Hinman Island in South Australia. Radical Women and Freedom Socialist Party were involved in United Defence and the Nurrinjeri women involving First Nations, Unionists and environmentalists. A vicious witch hunt against the women led by the South Australian government and bridge developers and fuelled by mainstream media ended in a royal commission ruling against them, accusing them of fabrication. Prime Minister John Howard then allowed the construction to go ahead. The state's use of brutal power has been on display at the Djibab Wurrung protest site. On October 26th, police used their expanded COVID powers against the protesters. According to community lawyers, they moved in early that morning to block access to the sacred trees and denied lawyers access, claiming they're not essential workers. The cops arrested about 60 protesters and issued COVID fines of $5,000 against many. Whatever is the outcome of the current court injunction to stop work, this fight is escalating. To defend the Djibab Wurrung, the following demands are crucial. Immediately cease work on the Western Highway construction. All sacred trees and the landscape must be protected. All police of Djibab Wurrung country. Release all arrested protesters. Withdraw all fines. It's urgent that we contact state members of Parliament by phone or email. No trees, no treaty, cultural genocide. And I wanted to read out that statement because it's very pertinent to the campaign, and I felt that it was a really good summary to be able to explain to listeners what's actually going on here. And this fight has actually been happening for a long time now, quite a few years, I think since about 2017. And I believe that Marjorie Thorpe actually put in an injunction or helped to bring about an injunction for the court so that work can be stopped. And there's been a lot of campaigning around this issue, and the Doing Time show has done quite a lot of extensive coverage, mainly through Lydia Thorpe and also DT as well. And we've done a lot of interviews with DT over the years. However, it's been terribly difficult to be able to get access to the women, to the elders, to be able to interview them on the show. So I'm really just putting out a shout-out to any Aboriginal women from the embassy who would be happy to be interviewed about this very, very important issue, because that's how we actually get the word out, and just to see if that could happen. And if that's the case, call 3CR on 9419 8377 and ask to be put in touch with Marisa from the Doing Time show. Moving right along, it's approximately 4:50 and we've got about 10 minutes left of our show. Thanks to Peter for organising Zelda from the Keep West Papua Safe. That was a very important interview. Also, I think we will go into a very quick announcement.
3CR.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey.
I'm Alphonse.
I'm Erwin. And we are from the Voice of West Papua.
Tuesday 6:30 until 7:30 p.m.
News and music from West Papua.
What we're dealing with here is a total lack of respect for the law.
Tune in to Done by Law.
An informal and irreverent look at the law. Critical insights and analysis from diverse community perspectives.
Done by Law, 6 p.m. Tuesdays.
I wanna drop food, not bombs. Hop trains, volunteer at every info shop. I wanna give free therapy out in the park. Go to free school, dumps and have practice squad. Drop food, not bombs.
Food Not Bombs is a protest against all the food waste.
We, I guess, rescue food
that would otherwise go to waste, make meals from that food,
and serves them up to people who need a feed.
We make a real point at Food Not Bombs of involving everyone who wants to be involved in whichever part they want to be involved in.
We need to have a working vehicle.
So we do need money to keep our van going.
Very occasionally we have to buy some food.
To donate to our current fundraiser, go to www.chaft.org/project/Food Not Bombs Pandemic Support. Food Not Bombs is a 3CR supporter.
Food Not Bombs.
And you're back with the Doing Time show. And just a little bit of correction that I wanted to make. I actually mispronounced the land that the Aboriginal women or the Aboriginal embassy was on. It's actually Djapurrung. So, yeah, when I read that article, I was mispronouncing it. So just to actually rectify that error, it is the Djapurrung embassy. So it's pronounced Djapurrung. Thank you so much. It's approximately 4:54, and please get along to the Sacred Trees. I believe that there are some workshops happening, or there were some workshops that happened over the weekend, and see if you can donate to that campaign as well. And good luck to the Djapurrung, and keep up the good work. It's approximately 4:54, and we're nearing the end of our show. We're going to be going out now with our theme song, Black Fella, White Fella, by the Rumpy Band. And stay tuned every Monday from 4 till 5 for the Doin' Time show. And we've got Beyond Zero up next. Bye. Stay safe.